I'm Bob Aylott, and I'm the founder of My Classic Boat channel. Today, we're going to talk to Dick Durham. He's the editor of the new online magazine Ocean Sailor. He's the king of their podcasts. So if you're into podcasts and want to listen all about sailing and ocean sailing, then tune in to Dick there. He's also columnist for Yachting Monthly. That's UK's oldest marine title. And he's a senior feature writer for Classic Boat magazine. Plus, of course, he's a contributor towards My Classic Boat channel, which is now the most watched classic boat channel in the world with over 5 million viewers. So we're pretty pleased, and that's a pretty impressive CV from our young Dick Durham. He's also a sailor. He's got a little old gaffer's boat, Betty 2, and she's 100 years old this year. So there'll be lots of celebrations up on the East Coast. So Dick's got a new adventure. It's a little bit scary, a bit frightening, something showing a side of Dick I've never seen before. But we're going to go over to him on Zoom, and which is all new to us. I mean, I'm not up to speed on Zoom, but bear with us if we have any mistakes or cock-ups. I'm sure we'll get there in the end. So, from me on the South Coast, let's go and join Dick over on the East Coast. Dick, welcome to My Classic Boat. We hear that you've got a new exciting adventure coming up, or that's happened. Can you tell us about it? It's a little bit frightening, I hear.
Well, appropriately enough, like all dark things, this came about during a night watch. And it's always on a night watch at sea when you become quite introspective because visibility is cut down. And a night watch with someone else, it's like a confessional because you talk about all the things that you perhaps wouldn't if you were in daylight. I could look them straight in the face. But when you're sailing on your own, it's perhaps even darker. And it was one such night I was sailing on my own, and I thought about being on my own and sailing out at sea. And I, oddly enough, came up with this idea about committing, or how one could commit the perfect murder. And if you think about it, you're on a boat, and if you could get your victim onto the boat that you wanted to dispose of them, you're going to be the only witness. You can have an accident. You could have an accidental jibe. So I thought more and more about this, and I decided it was worthy of a novel. So I have written that novel. It's called Dead Reckoning, and it involves a man and wife team going off to try to rebuild their marriage, and they have an uncontrolled jibe out in the North Sea. She goes over the side, the wife does, and he then goes into the procedure of rescuing her. Or does he? Is he doing it quickly enough? She's in the water looking at him thinking, is he doing this quickly enough? Has he really got my best interest at heart? And he's going through the procedure. He's calling a mayday. He's throwing the lifebelts over. He's getting lines ready to pick her up. But he's doing it in a pedestrian way. Is he in shock? Or has an opportunity suddenly flooded into his mind? And so I like to explore this. Is it an accident? The reader will have to say, is this an accident or is it premeditated? And even the skipper asks himself that. But by going through the procedure of calling a mayday and trying to get the man overboard back on board, in this case his wife, of course, he's also giving himself the perfect alibi. There's no one there to witness. So when eventually the authorities turn up, he can go through the procedure and talk about it in an authentic fashion. So anyway, the book is in two parts. The first part it's done in the first person. The first part is written by the account of the skipper and him trying to rebuild his marriage. And the second part is her story. And so you will ask, well, hang on, what does that mean? Well, I can't tell you the ending because it would spoil it. But safe to say that he has a lover, and he's worried that his messaging is on a cloud somewhere, and that if and when the authorities investigate the loss of his wife, they're going to discover all this email traffic on his phone, and that's going to give them motive, and then they're going to come down hard. But can they prove it? But all along, the reader will have to ask themselves, was this deliberate or was this an accident? And that's the purpose of the book. It explores, they're trying to rebuild their marriage, and it explores faith, sexuality, marriage, and infidelity. And it discovers vice in the first three and virtue in the last. So there we are, something to think about. Give you something to chew on. It's all set on board my own gaffer, Betty 2, built 100 years ago this year, aboard which my wife and I have both sailed. So she is still with us. The reader will be pleased to know it is fiction.
Well, that's a relief, isn't it?
Well, it is, yeah, it is for her. It says in the front it's fiction, but a lot of people are saying to me, has she read it? No, she hasn't. But then she never reads my novels anyway. So that's all right. But yes, both she and the boat still exist, and so do I. But I was very excited when I had the idea, and I've enjoyed writing it, and I hope that whoever reads it enjoys it as well.
I mean, what came first? Was it the fact that you were trying to work out the perfect murder, or a plot for a novel?
Oh, tricky one. Well, neither really. I wasn't thinking of a plot for a novel, but nor was I intending on murdering anybody. It just goes back to that night watch when these very dark thoughts come into your mind. You're conscious, you're not asleep because you're watching the boat at sea, but strange phantasmagoriums come into your mind. And this was one of them. And I thought, actually, I've watched a lot of movies about murder and crime series and all the rest of it. And this has to be closer to the perfect murder, because there are no other witnesses but just two of you there. I mean, she or he goes over the side, and you go through the motions of rescuing them. So you write it all down in the ship's log. You stop the engine, you press the major, or you start the engine, you drop the sails, etc., etc. So it would all be there, a written account of it, and as would your own testimony to the authorities. Would be done authentically, and you could stick to it because you actually went through it. You just didn't do it with as much speed or accuracy as you could have done.
Of course, you were a former Fleet Street tabloid hack, weren't you, and covered a lot of crime stories?
I did, yes, many crime stories, including both the funerals of both Cray twins. Covered Ronnie's for the Daily Star and Reggie's for CNN. So that shows you the weird wide spectrum of interest in those two pair of felons. But yeah, I did cover a lot of crime. I even went to the Black Museum at Scotland Yard's Black Museum and was shown around that, which is quite chilling. All sorts of ghastly weaponry and bloodstained shirts and ghoulish stories to behold in there.